Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the show. Hello, friends. Welcome. It's Thursday. It's another episode of the Women Who Do, a podcast about brave women making bold moves. The goal of this podcast, the mission really is to inspire women in their transformative years to embrace their courage and to go after their dreams. I also have short conversations with women who have empowering stories of resilience and reinvention that remind us that it is never too late to chase what we love. I am your host. My name is Dawn Bordelon. I am a warrior for women's health, an enterprising entrepreneur, and now an empowered public speaker. And I feel compelled to share the incredible stories of other women who have overcome challenges, reinvented themselves, and made bold moves to facilitate positive change at any age so that we can all be reminded and inspired to keep going. So just a few housekeeping notes before we get into our program. We've got an exciting show. I'm so excited about my guest today. But first, just want to say this podcast is recorded on Zoom. We just do the recording here on Zoom live. You all have been invited to watch this recording, but after the recording, it will be posted on Spotify and YouTube. So the benefit of being here is you get to check out the visuals and things that we have during the show live. And then if you want to replay the show, then you can watch it on YouTube or on Spotify approximately 3 days later. The podcast schedule is every Thursday at 6 p.m., with the exception of one Thursday. You will be notified, and we will just pick up the following week. That's happening in December. Also, if you know someone making big moves, email me or have them reach out to me at getstrong.withdawn@gmail.com. And I'm inviting you to write to me as well. Tell me about a bold move that you made. I'll go first. You're looking at it. This is a bold move for me. I am a humble women's fitness coach. I do not have a background in journalism or podcasting or radio or anything like that. And this is me stepping out and doing something totally outside of my element and really enjoying myself. Okay, not too much pressure, just having fun. But this is a topic that I am passionate about, and I'm excited to host these next few episodes, and we'll just see how we do. Okay. So I would love also to hear about anyone that you know of. Maybe you've heard of somebody, maybe you know someone special in your life that has inspired you, and you want to write to me about them. That would be fantastic. And I may share your letter in a future episode. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? Okay. Here we go. Let's get into the show. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my guest before I bring her on. Her name is Amy Hilliard. She is an entrepreneur, a successful corporate executive, board member, author, international speaker, and educator. Amy's blog and life coaching business, Sizzling After 60, is popular among all ages. I enjoy the blog myself. Amy currently sits on the leanin.org advisory board and was personally recruited by Sheryl Sandberg, who is, by the way, you might have heard of her, co-author of the book Lean In, which encourages women to assert themselves in the workplace, to pursue leadership roles, and challenge societal norms to achieve their career ambitions. As a Black woman from Detroit and an honors graduate of Howard University and the Harvard Business School, it still wasn't easy for Amy to get to these high corporate levels. Not only did she work hard to get to these positions and create multi-million-dollar brands for others, but she also assigned to herself the challenge of creating one for her own family. And we're going to talk about that. During the process of grinding toward these goals, she experienced life as many of us do: layoffs, bankruptcy, foreclosures, 2 divorces. You know, we're talking real life stuff. Amy's second book, Pivot for Success, Hone Your Vision, Shift Your Energy, and Make Your Move was published at the beginning of 2021 when she was 69 years old, and also 1 year into COVID quarantines. Remember that? Well, we're going to talk to her now, and let me get her on the screen. Unmute and let me get your camera on here. All right. Welcome, Amy Hilliard.
Hello, hello, hello.
Thank you so much for being here, sharing your story with us tonight. I'm excited to just dive in.
Let's go. I'm
Ready?
excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's just talk about Pivot for Success. All right. What
Mhm.
inspired you to write this during these uncertain times of the early days of COVID? Let's just talk, how did that happen?
Well, Dawn, it's really something that happened because everybody was talking about pivoting as the pandemic was going on. And people said, I've got to make a pivot. What do we do now? And I know that when people think about pivoting, people sometimes thought that I'll just turn around and do something new. And I felt that it was not enough to just think about just turning around and spinning around. I thought it was important that people do it strategically so that they had a plan of how to do it. Because otherwise, you would be just spinning around and maybe you would stop at the wrong point. So I wanted to give people a strategy of how to pivot so that you would be able to go in the direction that was going to be most productive. And when I did that, I thought of giving people an overview to start with, which came about with the hone your vision, shift your energy, and then make your moves. Those three steps first. I had then come with the 10 pivot points because I had been using those for 25 years, teaching them globally. I had been working with them. I came up with them myself. And my first book, Tap Into Your Juice, used them. And so I wanted to expand on them in a different way, in a bigger way. And that's when I put them and incorporated them into the book Pivot for Success. So people would have a game plan to use. And so that's how it came about.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to get more into Pivot for Success a little bit later in our conversation. Excited to talk about that. But why don't we what I want to do, I want to talk about some of the directions that your life has taken and kind of give a bit of a timeline here, just so we get the whole picture. Okay. So
Mhm.
you started your career in retail merchandising,
Yes.
but you wanted a career in marketing. So in 1981, you were able to do that starting with Gillette, working at Gillette in 1981 when you were 29.
Mhm.
Then
Mhm.
in 19, so we're going to fast forward to 1995 when you were 43, you founded your strategic marketing and consulting firm, the Hilliard Group.
Yes.
And some of your clients, okay, I recognize a few of these names: BET Networks,
Yes.
Pandora Jewelry, American Express, HBO, Gap, there's more. All right.
Mhm.
Just amazing, amazing, amazing work you were doing there. And then 6 years later at 49, you're just like, you're just getting started. You're just ramping up. The Hilliard Group is going strong. And now you decide to start your own business, the
Mhm.
Comfort Cake Company. This
Mhm.
is selling pound cake from your own recipes. And this certainly is way different. This is different than corporate America. Why did you decide to go into the food industry and strike off in this new venture?
Well, that came because, I am an entrepreneur at heart. Even though I worked for Gillette, I also worked for Pillsbury. I also worked for L'Oreal and when they had acquired Soft Sheen. So I've worked in corporate America a lot, and I had launched multi-million-dollar products for corporate America. And I thought, well, I got to launch one for my family. And the only product that I had that could do anything was my pound cake. I love pound cake. It's my favorite dessert, and I would make it for every bake sale for my kids, every dinner party. I'd bring my pound cake, and people kept saying, girl, you should put this on the market. And one time at a block club thing, one of my neighbors said, if you should put this on the market. And I had told myself, if one other person said that to me, I'm gonna do it. And so this neighbor said it, and I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. And at that time, I was working for SoftSheen, so I had a job, and I hired a consultant to help me write a business plan so I could, continue with my job. And I said, let me just get this business plan written. I did my research, and I knew that there were not a lot of, uh, pound cakes around that were, on planes and things of that nature. And I said, well, let me see what I can do with it. And I knew that I wanted to do it in a way that I was used to in terms of launching brands. And so I went to banks and I said, I need X amount of dollars to do this the right way. And the banks kept telling me, well, this is a nice idea. In fact, one banker told me, he said, pound cake business, that's actually a cute idea, but you don't have any customers. So this is a cute idea. And I told him, I said, I'm not trying to be cute. I was a single mother at the time. I have two kids. I'm trying to put two kids through college. So this is not trying to be cute. This is a business. And so I did not get a bank loan, even with all of my experience and all of my degrees and all of that didn't matter. And so what I had to end up doing was to sell my home in order to fund the business. And that was really something that was an eye opener for me in terms of commitment. How committed are you really to your idea? And I talked to my kids about it because we were living in a big house, and it was in a nice, beautiful neighborhood. And I knew I had equity in the home. And so I talked to my kids about it, and my son, who was, I guess 9 years old at the time. And I had a beautiful porch with a beautiful porch swing that I loved. And he said, well, Mom, we can get a condo and put a porch swing in the house. And I was like, thank you, son. I appreciate it. And then I talked to my daughter and she said, well, Mom, don't worry, we can do this because a house is not a home. A home is a place you live with the people that you love. And so with my kids' blessing, I put the house on the market and took those funds and was able to start the business in a way that looked like we were in a big company already with great packaging. I use very good professionals. I use graphic artists that had done things like the Intel swoop. Um, and my packaging was done with professionals that were in the food packaging business. And I was able to also purchase a condo so that my children would grow up in a nice size condo so that they wouldn't feel deprived. And we got started in the retail section of the distribution channel. And we started selling out of the trunk of my car. And we were in the small retail sections of the local retail stores and some smaller jewel stores of the jewel chain and started doing well. But that was not going to put my kids through college either. And so I looked at going into the food service channel and knew that that had larger volume. And we were able to secure a very big customer. And that customer was United Airlines. That was our first major customer. I got that customer through relationships. And you'll hear me talk about this a lot. Relationships and business is everything. I knew the director of diversity at United Airlines, and I had seen her at events and everything. And I told her of my idea. And she said, well, when you're ready, you can talk to me. And I said, well, I would like to, because I was flying all over with my, corporate jobs, and I had never tasted a pound cake on a plane. And I said, I'd like a meeting with the buyer at United. So she set it up and I got the meeting and I got my samples made by a smaller bakery and they looked so cute. They were in a nice presentation box with packaging and it looked like they could be sold on a plane. And I got the meeting and presented it to the buyer and left it with him in the office. And the next day he called me and he said, Amy, we like your samples. In fact, we want to buy 550,000 of them. I
What?
said, really? What? And, I said, well, that's wonderful. And I'm very happy. Goodbye. I hung up the phone. I couldn't believe it. I was like, thank you. Goodbye. And then I'm like, what are you doing? Call him back. And so I called him back. I said, oh, Bill, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hang up the phone, but I was really excited. He said, don't worry. I understand. And so with that order, I knew we had to really get in gear. And so what we did was, we had plenty of time. This is 2001. We had plenty of time because this happened in about June. And he said, we have to see production quality samples. Those small samples were great, but we need to see production quality samples before you get them on board. So I was excited about that. And we went to the bakery that was doing the samples to get the production samples made. That small bakery couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. We'd set up meetings so we could talk about it. And that bakery would keep me waiting for 2 hours, outside his office saying, just 1 second, we got to figure out something. Just keep waiting, Amy. And I'm a businesswoman. You don't keep somebody waiting when you have a huge order from a major client. So I knew something was going on. And I finally told him, I said, you can't do this, can you? And he said, I'm sorry, Amy, we can't. We don't have the capacity to do it. So I had to say, well, thank you, but we can't do business together. And in fact, you're fired, basically. And so I walked away with this huge order and no bakery to produce it.
Oh my God.
So this is again where relationships matter. I had met Mark Schulman, who is the owner of Eli's Cheesecakes, a very famous cheesecake maker who, markets his cheesecakes all over the country. And I met him at a party and, told him of my plight. And he had been helpful with me actually before then with getting things certified with food specialists and things at the University of Nebraska. Told him of my plight and I needed a bakery. I was calling bakeries in the yellow pages back then. And he said, you'll never find what you need in the yellow pages because these kind of bakeries aren't in the yellow pages. It's all networking. So he said, this is a bakery that can help you. Give them my name. And so I called the bakery up, gave him his name, and the bakery said, yes, we can do this. And we signed all the documentation because I'm a big person on documentation, non-disclosures. You can't take my recipes, none of that stuff. And he signed all the paperwork. And in 2 weeks, I went back and my samples were laid out on these tables. I felt like Mrs. Fields. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to happen. And
Wow.
so it was done. And so we got the business ready to go. And then getting towards September 2001, 9/11 happened. So I'm like, oh my God, we are going to be thrown out because this, nobody was flying.
Right.
You know, it was just, that was it.
Mhm.
So
Everything had shut down, basically.
everything shut down and I just knew we were going to be thrown out, that's it. But United said to me, a product called Comfort Cake on our planes right about now, because they still had to fly something.
Hmm.
Product called Comfort Cake should be okay. And we want you to keep the business. So we were good. We said, we got the first order shipped, but it was like, can we continue to ship? And then the bakery wasn't answering my calls.
Mm.
And I'm like, what's going on? And this is a lesson learned here. Always know many people in your supply chain
Mhm.
because the research director of the bakery, I called her at home. I said, Sayedeth, I'm not getting calls from the owner. What's going on? She said, I don't know, but we haven't been paid in 2 weeks. As it turned out, that bakery had a lot of their business with airlines. And so they were in trouble. And I finally said, when the owner called me, he said, I am so sorry to tell you this, Amy, but we are going out of business because our business was with the airlines. And
Mhm.
this was on a Monday. And he called me and said, on Tuesday, the banks are coming to seize our business.
Oh my
And
goodness.
when the banks come to seize your business and your assets, they take everything on the premises, including my pans, all of my assets that I had at the bakery, $40,000 worth of pans, etc. So I told my team, guess what? This is going to happen tomorrow. We have 5 minutes for a pity party. I called them around our little conference table and I said, we have 5 minutes for a pity party. And then we got to go into action. So we took 5 minutes for a pity party. And
Oh,
that was it. And
yeah.
then we went into action. My ops guy got a U-Haul and my office manager, we were in our truck Tuesday morning going for our stuff.
It sounds like
Well,
something like a movie.
It felt like a movie, like a nightmare,
Yeah.
right? But the point of it is that you cannot let stuff take you out when you have it on the line. And so the my ops guy got there before we did because the traffic was bad. So when we got to the bakery, he was already loading our stuff. And so the ops manager of the bakery called me in his office, and he started on his computer and he printed out some information. He said, Amy, come in here. He said, these are your real cost of goods because you need to know how much your stuff costs. And I know a bakery in the next town over who can keep producing for you. But so that you won't get cheated, this is how much your stuff really costs. And you can still make money. And that's how we stayed in business.
Amazing. Wow. Wow. I was on the edge of my seat. So takeaways are relationships, right? Business is about relationships, document everything. No
Mhm.
more than one contact,
Right.
right? And don't let anything take you out. If the
Don't
a
let it.
5 minute pity party, you get a 5 minute pity party, and then it's time to take action.
Mhm.
All those amazing, amazing takeaways.
Mhm.
Okay. So where is Comfort Cakes at today? Like, where is it at today?
Well, it's a long and winding road to where we got today, you know. So throughout the years of Comfort Cake, we did really well. We were in Home Shopping Network. We got into Walmart. We got into several chains of grocery stores across the country. We had a nice e-commerce business. We were shipping our cakes all over the country. We were on Food Network. It was great. It was great. Our biggest customer was the Chicago Public Schools, where we were serving over 6 million servings a year of our frozen batter to Chicago Public Schools. The kids loved it. I used to come to speak at the schools so they could see a real person behind the comfort cake that they love to eat at their lunches, right? And I used to speak to the kids about the business so they could see that you could be in the food business if you wanted to. And it was doing great. And then, there was the time that came around when Michelle Obama, our forever first lady, was, promoting healthy food. And she said, we cannot have so many desserts on the menu in our schools. And so they were pulling back having desserts on the menu. Oh, which was, I understood, but it affected our business because they pulled back on desserts and then we started making whole grain pizza crusts for the schools, which held our volume, but they were less profitable. So that affected our business. And then we had issues with just keeping up with things with that happening. My parents were older. My father became ill, and I had to help my mother with his care. And that really affected my time with the business. So we had to slow some things down and I had to deal with that. And that was one of the things that I always recognized being an entrepreneur. I didn't have to ask anybody, could I help take care of my father? I just did. And I also was glad of being an entrepreneur because I had time to be with my children, to go to my son's games, to go to the school events with my daughter and my son. So I was very family oriented and I knew that that was important to me, but I had to make some decisions about the business. And so when it started slowing down, it was a tough time. And I will tell anybody that. But what I did do is I made sure that we were able to, continue on at a lower level, but the aftermath of that was that I had to really be aware that, we were going to have some issues with paying our suppliers and paying our bank loans, and that was a tough time for the business. So I was then offered uh, a opportunity that was helpful to our cash flow, where Linda Johnson Rice, the daughter of John Johnson and Eunice Johnson, asked me to become president of Fashion Fair Cosmetics. Linda and I had been friends for a long time. I met her mother when I was right out of Howard University and working for Bloomingdale's, and met her mother at Halston's fashion show when I was the only Black woman sitting in the front row of Halston's fashion show because I was assistant to the buyer of Bloomingdale's. And she wanted to know why, as a Black woman, I'm sitting in the front row, Mrs. Johnson. I said, "Oh, Miss Johnson, I know who you are. Bless you, my queen." And so it was just amazing because I saw Fashion Fair Cosmetics being launched that day. She said, "You're going to see history, young lady." fashion fair is going to be launched today and you're going to see it. Mrs. Johnson told me. So fast forward 40 years later, her daughter asked me to become president of Fashion Fair because she needed my expertise in marketing. So I took that job. My daughter ran the business, and so it was helpful to keep things going. But after all of that happened, I made the decision to really slow down the manufacturing of Comfort Cake because it was becoming clear to me that in order to keep the business going, I would have to ultimately own a plant myself.
Mm.
And I did not want to do that. I looked at it seriously, but co-packing was the way I was able to do the business, and owning a plant was not what I wanted to do. That's not my expertise. You know,
Right.
when the ovens went down, I didn't want to have to be fixing them. I wanted the people who were running the plant call me when the ovens are back up.
Right.
But me fixing the ovens, I don't want to, I did not, that was not my strong suit. So I had to make a decision to kind of just, you know, slow the business down, but I still own the business. And what I do with the business now is that I license the intellectual property of the business to people who might be interested in using my recipes or using my patent pending sugar substitute called sugarless sweetness, because my dad was a diabetic and he kept eating a lot of comfort cake at Thanksgiving. And I said, Daddy, you can't do that. You're diabetic. And he said, well, make one that I can eat. And I
Oh,
developed an ingredient I hired a food scientist, and we developed an ingredient called sugarless sweetness. And I developed it right along with her. And now we have this ingredient that you cannot tell the difference from sugar. And we were filmed when it was in production by the Food Network, and people would sell out on that with Food Network. I was on Home Shopping Network with it. It would constantly sell out with our sugarless sweetness formula. So those are the things that I'm doing with Comfort Cake now.
amazing. Never let anything take you out. So comfort cakes, it continue lives on, right? And
Yes,
just amazing,
yes.
amazing. Just and also the fact that you knew, okay, this is not the direction I want to go in. I don't want to own a plant, and I don't want to deal with manufacturing, issues and things like that, right? So kind of knowing your strengths, knowing where you want to put your efforts, how you want to flex, you know,
Mhm.
all of that is wisdom, right? That you have gained through all of your experience. Now, thinking moving forward, right? At 2005, you're 53 years
Mhm.
old, right? You write your first book. All right. And this is Tap into Your Juice. The full title is Tap into Your Juice, Find Your Gifts, Lose Your Fears, and Build Your Dreams. And this book was endorsed by former First Lady Michelle. So we're hearing Michelle Obama's name again. And there were actually other endorsements too. She's not the only one who endorsed these 10 pivot points, that came out of this book. So first of all, what was it like receiving an endorsement from someone like Michelle Obama?
Oh my goodness, it was thrilling. This happened when Barack Obama was running for the Senate. And so they were very busy with the campaign. And actually, I met Michelle Obama when I first moved to Chicago. And again, relationships. And so I was working at Burrell Communications, and I met a young lady who worked at the University of Chicago hospitals with Michelle Obama. And she said, you're new in town, and I know you want to meet some people. I'm going to a baby shower. Would you like to come with me? And I said, sure. It was Michelle Obama's baby shower for Malia.
Oh, whoa, whoa, okay.
Yes. And that's how I met her, right? And so, we would see each other at different events around town. And then I told her what I was doing, and I told her what I was working with. And so I asked her, would she endorse my book? She said she'd be happy to do it. And so that's how I asked for her endorsement, and she was just as gracious as she could be and gave me this beautiful endorsement. And even Barack Obama would at an event when he was promoting himself for the Senate, running for his campaign, I got him to wear a Comfort Cake T-shirt and actually sample Comfort Cake with me at this neighborhood event. And I have a picture of him handing out samples of Comfort Cake. And so when he won for the Senate, I put that on my website. And of course, I was just happy as a clam until the Senate office gave me the cease and desist. You cannot have the senator endorsing your product.
Oh,
It's like advertising. And I'm like, what? Okay, fine. So I
Already.
took it down, but Obama and was always very, very gracious about things like that. He said, Amy, I didn't do that. That was my office. And I
Oh,
understood that. But Michelle Obama has always been, terrifically supportive. And then because I was on the board of Howard University as a trustee, she came to visit Howard as First Lady. And I told her that I was getting ready to expand the book um, and into Pivot for Success, and could I keep her endorsement of those 10 pivot points? And she told me, she said, Amy, those pivot point and those my endorsement of those 10 pivot points are yours for life. What could I say?
oh,
I My heart was too full.
oh, and
Just
I can see it's still full
oh
from
my goodness,
that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, then, so why don't you give us just the general idea of the pivot points that you talked about in your first book? Just give us like a gloss over, little overview of that.
Okay. Well, there are 10 pivot points, and they all start with P, and they start with finding your purpose. What is the gift that only you have that you can share with others in the world? It's like your fingerprint. Only you have it. Then it's believing in possibilities. What are the things that you can do now? What are the things that you can do a year from now? And because everything that has happened in this world started as someone's possibility. Then it's like defining your priorities. What's important to you now? And what are things that you need to do now because of the way that your life is? Things like getting prepared, because you've got to, just like doing the work, you've got to do the work, just like DreamWorks. You've got to do the work to get where you are going. Envisioning prosperity, because all money isn't green. What is prosperity to you? Having patience. And having patience is important because, I'm a card carrying member of the Type A club. Okay. And sometimes it's hard to be patient because we want things in this day and age to be everything to be microwave. Everything is a microwave decision. We want it right now. But patience is a very powerful thing because you can step back from a situation and assess whether or not it's the right decision for you if you take the time to be patient and make sure you're looking at it in a 360-degree way. Having passion is important, but not the first thing, because passion without a plan can be a lot of hot air. Are you managing your perceptions of things because you don't want to advertise what you don't have? So all of those things really are part of the 10 P's. And I really go deeply into what they are and how they can benefit you. Because each of those P's has benefits to your life. Seeking positivity is important. Susan Taylor, the editor-in-chief emerita of Essence Magazine, who I met when I was a sophomore at Howard University, and she came on campus trying to select people, college students to be in Essence. And of course, I thought I was going to be selected, right? I was all gussied up, and she didn't select me, and I was, brokenhearted. But then, as when I got to Gillette, I was, on my soapbox and saying, why Gillette aren't we advertising in Essence, Ebony, Jet magazines, all these Black magazines? We use deodorant, we use hairspray. Why aren't we advertising in those magazines? And so that's how I got to meet Susan in a whole different capacity, and we became friends. And she told me something that was very important about seeking positivity, which is everybody can't have a front row seat in your life. You can move the deck chairs around, but
Yeah,
everybody doesn't need to have a front row seat in your life. So these are things that I learned over time, and I started these 10 P's for myself back in 25 years ago, as I was learning how I could navigate life. When the teacher needs to know things, she kind of learns them and they come to her, and then she can teach them to others. And so when I was learning them for me, I started teaching them to others on different speaking tours, African American women on tour, which some people may remember. And then I just started writing them down, and then people started asking me to speak on them more, and then asking me to write them down in books. And that's how they all came about.
that's how it all came about. Well, then, just in the beginning, so if we fast forward then, the beginning of 2021, all right, 70 years old. During
Yep.
the height of COVID and the uncertainty with the economy, there was a lot of talk about
Mm-hmm.
pivoting. I had to use the word pivoting because I had a business that was meant to begin in April of 2020, and March 15th, everything changed. And
Yeah.
so I found myself having those same conversations and having to make some tough decisions. So there was this was happening all over the globe. So the 10 pivot points from your first book ended up becoming the foundation for your second book, which we're talking about today, Pivot
Mm-hmm.
for Success.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you finished this in the beginning of the year, but and by the fall, then you're invited to teach a course to MBAs at the University of Chicago based on your book about pivoting. So just 9 months or a few months later, how did it feel to complete this book and then to just right away be teaching a course at the University of Chicago?
That was really amazing. It really was. And I'm a woman of faith, very much so. And I believe that things happen for a reason, that God is in everything. And I had been teaching at Loyola before that, at the Loyola Business School, and they wanted me to teach. I taught marketing there, just straight marketing, and um, and I was teaching. COVID had started, and I was teaching online. I learned how to teach online because of COVID, but I wasn't teaching from my book. And then when the University of Chicago reached out to me, they had also reached out to me about teaching marketing. And I said to them, well, I looked at their benches and I said, you have an already strong marketing bench. And the world is pivoting now. They're talking about pivoting. I just finished this book about pivoting. And I think that, and I had done my research and I looked at all of the curriculums of the top business schools. And I said, nobody's teaching folks how to pivot. I would prefer to give you a proposal on building a course based on my book because I think that graduate students, MBAs, need to learn how to pivot in order to deal with the uncertainty that the world is facing right now. And so they agreed to let me write them a proposal on what the curriculum would look like and what the course would look like. And they accepted it. And that's how I was able to start teaching a course based on Pivot for Success. I was able to do it both personally and professionally because I insisted on the fact that you must learn personally about pivoting in how to the pivots of your life create who you are as a person so that you can also be able to understand the teams that you're working with. But professionally, you've got to be able to lead your teams in pivoting as well. So we did different case studies of companies that pivoted well and companies that didn't. Like Kodak, for example, did not pivot well when they hold the whole instant cameras and digital camera started moving forward. Kodak did not pivot well. Okay. And then you look at other companies that did pivot well, like Netflix, they pivoted quite well. So I was able to, juxtapose things that they could see corporately, but I insisted on my students. The first thing that they had to do was to write an essay of pivots that worked well in their lives and pivots that didn't, and what they learned from both things. And throughout the course, they would always turn back to the learnings that they had personally and how they would use those learnings professionally. And so it was a great experience because I had the opportunity to work with students from all over the world. And that those things are universal in terms of pivoting. And the stories that they would reflect on were very important both for them and also for me, so that they could relate to different ways of pivoting from if you're coming from Asia and you have to come over to the United States and learn the cultures here and how to pivot from here, but also you're bringing your culture and what it meant for you to learn a whole new culture and pivot in those ways to succeed. So it was a great experience.
Wow. Definitely, you can see where it applies, no matter where you come from, whatever. It applies personally, professionally, and the fact that you were able to capture that, help them see that, bring those things together. I guarantee you, those lessons, that course is still benefiting them you know,
It is,
today.
and it's very gratifying that students still, come back to me and still connect with me. Students from Singapore, students from Brazil, I mean, and students from America. It's very gratifying.
Wow. Well, in your book, Pivot for Success, you have a graphic that pictures finding your ideal path and something called the sweet spot.
Mhm,
And I want to share that on the screen here. So in just a second, I'm going to pull it up. And it
mhm,
helps us to visualize the sweet spot that helps you bring flow, right, to your ambitions.
mhm.
And in the graphic, you've got these three circles, and you see that merges purpose, possibilities, passion, and then you have patience and setting priorities. So I'm going to bring this up, and then I'm going to let you talk about that for the people who are on Zoom, but also for those who might be listening later on, just to give them some insight on how brave women can make bold moves in midlife by finding their ideal path. So let me pull that up. All right, here we go.
Mhm. Well, this is the graphic that I developed because I wanted to be able to show people how your sweet spot really is a combination of marrying your purpose, your possibilities, and your passion with having patience, priorities, and prosperity. These are not all the 10 P's, but these are some of the key ones that if you are marrying all of these things and finding your sweet spot in the middle of your purpose, your possibilities, and your passion, and you're making sure that your priorities are in line with your having patience about having all these things, and you're envisioning the prosperity that you need to be happy, that your sweet spot is right in the middle. It's right in the middle because it's a convergence of all those things. And your sweet spot is when you are in alignment with all of those things, your ideal path will be clearer to you. It'll be clearer to you because you're doing things that envision your purpose, your purpose of your gift that you have that's only yours. You're passionate about your gift. You believe in the possibilities of your gift, and the priorities of your gift and your life are in alignment. And you're patient about making it happen. And you are clear that your prosperity that you're seeking is worth the effort. And so you're sitting in your sweet spot.
Amazing. Amazing. That is, and it's so simple, right? You could definitely commit this visual to memory. But even better than that, it would be just to get the book because you can find this. Hang on, let me go ahead and stop this share, bring us back up here. Okay. Get the book. That is where you can get all the rest of the information. This was condensed down, and I can see how I can apply this in how I make moves, right? These brave, bold moves that I'm attempting to make. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Where can people buy your book? Where
They
can they?
can buy the book on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. And it's important, when you think about that sweet spot, because now I'm looking at where my life is now, that sweet spot is very different from what I've done before. I have a blog that I don't know if we're going to get to talking about that, but I am doing things differently now than I was, in my earlier years because my sweet spot is different now,
Mhm.
you know. I have grinded a lot over the years. And now, I have a mantra that I want to grind less and glide more. And that is what I'm doing in my life coaching business, which is Sizzling After 60. And I started that because I have a blog called Sizzling After 60 that I started when I was 60 and my mother was 90 and my daughter was 30. And I could see my past, present, and future.
Mhm.
And I said, you know what? I want to be sizzling after 60 for a long time. My mother was wearing high heels at 92 years old. And I said, I want to be able to do that. And so I want to be able to, again, give women the opportunity to know that life is great after 60 if you plan for it, if you live for it, if you keep your health on the forefront of your priorities, that you can create a wonderful life for you in the next phase of your life. And I am enjoying this work immensely of helping women to discover, reclaim, and evolve into their true authentic selves and elevate their energy and live life with joy. It's an amazing, amazing process that I'm going through, and I just truly love the effect that it's having with women because the world needs our wisdom, our sassiness, and our savvy. Okay? Because life is a little crazy right now, but we can bring so much to it that do not ever think that it's too late to do anything that you want to do.
100%, 100%. Thank you so much. Here you are, 72 years young. It's hard for the words to, because you are so unbelievably gorgeous. I would
Oh,
never guess that you are 72 years young. And clearly, your drive, that grind still continues. But like you said, you're gliding more than
yeah.
grinding now. And that's all because of all of these things that you've put together, following your own right? Advice through pivoting, understanding, right? Really how to organize your life, your priorities, understand yourself, what moves you, what drives you, all of these things. And I'm just thrilled that you were able to come on the show today. I have put links in the chat for where people can find your blog called Sizzling After 60. Definitely check it out. Give it a read. I read, I printed things, I highlighted things. It's just an amazing, so much value in what you share on that blog for me. And I just know that anybody who's listening or watching, get on there, check out Sizzling After 60. The link is in the chat. Also, your book, Pivot for Success, on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. Okay, so check it out. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely. I just feel like I've only really skimmed the surface, but we tried to pack in as much as we could, and I just really, really appreciate your time.
Well, you're very welcome, Dawn. I've enjoyed working with you. I enjoyed meeting you a few months ago. You are an amazing young woman who has so much to give. And, your fitness journey is wonderful because I'm about, fitness and keeping it moving. Because that's all about it. Without health, you have no wealth. So you gotta keep it moving. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Okay, so that was absolutely thrilling. I'm going to be grinning and glowing for for a while after that conversation. I just feel so inspired, and I hope that you all do as well. Okay, so let's get into our final segment of the show. We have reached the last part of our second episode of the Women Who Do podcast, and it is called Women Who Wow. See what I did there? Women Who Wow. It's a mini contest where I'm going to give you just a few clues about a notable woman who has done something or is doing big things now. The first person to email me the correct name of the woman that I'm talking about will get a mention in the next podcast episode. Now, one day I might have prizes, but that day is not today. For now, you will just have to enjoy an honorable mention. And I did receive an email with the correct answer from last week's woman who, wow. Shout out to Leela Carter. Leela Carter for emailing with the name Reshma Saujani, who is the author of the best-selling book, Brave Not Perfect. Go read it. and the founder of Girls Who Code, a nonprofit organization teaching young girls programming skills and fostering their interest in computer science. All right, so excellent. Thank you so much for participating and writing in, Leela. Okay, so this week's clues for women who wow. Here we go. Let me just dive right in. Clue number one, this talented designer graduated from the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design, where she honed her skills in fine arts and textile design. Okay, textile. Clue number two, known for her nature-inspired creations, she focuses on sustainable materials and eco-friendly production processes in her textile line. Earth-friendly. Clue number three, this designer authored the book Living with Color, sharing insights on how to incorporate vibrant hues into home decor while promoting mindful design. Clue number four, as she grew her business, she faced the challenge of multiple employees being pregnant, including herself, all at the same time, requiring her to strategize, pivot, how to grow and sustain her business through that period, especially once those kids started sleeping through the night. Okay, last clue. Her creations are celebrated for her commitment to ensuring that beauty and sustainability coexist in every home. Okay, so who is our woman who wows? Go ahead and email me if you know the answer. Feel free to do a little research. Feel free, to send me an email after you do that research and figure out who this woman is. Email me your answer at getstrong.withdawn@gmail.com. Next week's guest is TBA. All right. I will keep you posted. To keep up with all the happenings with Women Who Do podcasts, follow my Instagram page, chocolate.covered.fitness on Instagram. Okay. And I'm also on Facebook, but Instagram is primarily the channel that I am keeping everybody up to date on the happenings. Okay. Next is my shameless plug. I am a women's strength and fitness coach here in San Diego, California. I am accepting new clients for 2025. If you would like more information on working with me, email me at getstrong.withdawn@gmail.com for pricing and info and all that. Follow me on IG. Join my new community on the School app, School spelled SKOOL. It's called Your Daily Motivation, and I feature 2-minute motivational talks with the scenery, the backdrop of my walks in beautiful San Diego. These are meant to sustain you when life gets lifey. Okay, follow my school page called Your Daily Motivation. All the links are in the chat. Well, thank you so much for joining me again on Women Who Do podcast. I will see you all next Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Zoom for the live recording. And then you will see on YouTube after that will be uploaded and on Spotify. Until then, find what moves you and don't stop there. Bye.